Around 1500, Henry VII became interested in the manor of Hanworth, a favourite hunting ground, until his death on the 22nd of April 1509. When he died, it passed to his second son, who became Henry VIII, who also enjoyed hunting at Hanworth. Mary Tudor, later Queen Mary, once lived at Hanworth, when Sir Richard Weston was lord of the manor. When Henry VIII died, it was passed to the Dowager Queen Catherine Parr, who lived at the manor with her husband, and her stepdaughter, the Princess Elizabeth. Edward VI was the next holder of the manor, and upon his death, it was passed to Queen Elizabeth I, who leased the manor to Sir William Killigrew. Killigrew's tenancy continued through James I's reign, who often stayed at Hanworth. Killigrew died in 1620, and the manor was passed to his son Robert, and in 1627, Sir Francis Cottington became owner of the manor of Hanworth. Mary Chambers married Lord Vere Beauclerk in 1736, who was the younger son of the first Duke of St Albans. Lord Beauclerk died in 1781, leaving Hanworth to his son Aubrey, who eventually became the 5th Duke of St Albans. Aubrey was the last duke to live at Hanworth Manor, and in 1793 the house and some land were leased to Edward Russell Howe. Edward Russell Howe's tenancy came to an abrupt end on the 26th of March 1797, when a fire destroyed most of the manor buildings. Luckily, during Cottington's time, he built a wall around the house, which probably saved the fire from spreading to the church next door. A new house would be built half a mile or so north, and would become Hanworth Park House. Building of the new house commenced in 1798, and was completed in 1802. To help pay for the new house, the 6th Duke of St Albans commenced selling off part of his art collection. The 6th Duke died in 1815, and his will had left the entire estate to his wife Louisa, who in turn left the estate to her sister, Laura Dalrymple. Laura died in 1834 and left the estate to her niece, Lady Aylesbury, on the condition her mother, the Countess, was to live at Hanworth for the rest of her life. The Countess died in 1840, and the estate was sold to Henry Perkins. Algernon, his only surviving son, took over the realms. When Henry died in 1855, he added the clock tower and west wing to Hanworth Park House, and he also built the ice house, after which the area known as the Mount is named. Algernon died in 1872, and had no children to inherit the estate, so it was sold off at auction as per instructions of his wife Sophia. At some time after 1865, the east wing was also added. Alfred Lafone purchased Hanworth Park House and the land that surrounded it in 1873. He was likened to one of his predecessors, Henry Perkins, wealthy and a partner in a large company. Alfred Lafone died in 1911. The shops and school in Hanworth all closed as a mark of respect, and children lined the funeral route. When he died, Hanworth Park House seemed to be unoccupied until the second year of the war, when it was opened by the Red Cross to be used as a hospital for sick and wounded soldiers. During the war, John Alexander Whitehead, of Whitehead Aircraft, purchased Hanworth Park and the house. He already had a factory at Richmond, but they desperately needed an airfield, and Hanworth fitted in nicely. Members of the Canadian Army felled the trees, and German prisoners of war rerouted the Longford River and covered it with concrete slabs. The end of the war brought the end of Whitehead Aircraft, and in 1919, the company went into administration due to the money they were owed by the government. He lived at Hanworth Park House until 1921, when bankrupt proceedings were taken out against him. In 1936, the house became a country club and hotel for members of Aircraft Exchange and Mart, who now owned the park, and used the old Whitehead facilities and hangars. David Brown took ownership of Aston Martin in 1947, and as the Victoria Road factory had sustained considerable wartime damage, he needed to relocate both the race team and production line. Aston Martin leased some hangars on the airfield site of Hanworth Park, just a half a mile away from Victoria Road. This became the immediate post-war home for Aston Martin, until they moved production to Newport Pagnell, and Hanworth Park House remained the centre for service, engineering, development and racing, but eventually closed in the mid-1960s. Hanworth Park Hotel continued after the Second World War until 1953, when it was purchased by Middlesex County Council. In 1956, the house, after a central extension was added, opened as a nursing home. In 1965 its administration was taken over by the London Borough of Hounslow. The nursing home shut in 1992 and it has been empty ever since. There was occasional interest as a film set and has featured in BBC drama A Very Open Prison, Tales from the Crypt and a few other small productions. It was also used in an episode of Inspector Morse, with many views of the house shown in the program. The house has changed hands a few times, and one of the previous owners got planning permission to build a 166-room hotel, although this never materialized, and the house remained empty and was allowed to deteriorate. In December 2014, Gary Cottle purchased the house, and with his own team, he submitted plans to LBH to build houses behind the main building and to restore the house. This was refused due to a greenbelt issue, even after submitting revised plans for less houses and using the footprint of the hotel planning permission. In 2017, Gary joined the Facebook group about the house, run by local people. Word got out that the owner of this house that had been shrouded in mystery for years was now a member, and requests to visit the house appeared. Gary opened the house once or twice on a weekday, and a few people turned up to have a look round. Such was the demand to open on a weekend, that one Saturday in September the house was opened and a few hundred visited. Gary was on hand to talk to people about his plans and obstructions, and soon the news got out. Within a couple of months the Facebook group grew from 200 members to over 2,500, and it's still climbing. On a second Saturday opening, over 400 people visited in a little over 2 hours. There were no guided tours. People were allowed to roam freely around the house. Gary was again on hand to talk to people. It was around this time that a group of enthusiasts got talking to Gary about offering assistance as a support group to gain public interest and possibly put pressure on LBH. Initially there was about 4 or 5 people in this group, but it has now grown to 14 people, with a separate group researching history. There have been meetings with the Environmental Trust, Heritage England, and Hounslow Council, and even the Mayor of London and his deputy have been consulted and invited to visit the house. The local MP and councillors have also visited and offered their support. Due to winter weather, the open days were put on hold, although it has been open a couple of times for VIP visits, including descendants of 19th century owners, courtesy of the history group's research. Ex-workers from when it was a care home have also visited the house. Again, word has got out and there is now a separate Facebook group for the ex-workers, with many pictures of the time they were at the house. The support group formed a committee, and will eventually become the Friends of Hanworth Park House, once the land swap or sale has been completed and proposals accepted. There has been a lot of exposure recently. Local radio stations have visited, and local newspapers, as well as BBC News Online. One of the support team, Sam Bennett, is a paranormal investigator, and has held successful investigations at the house. It has also more recently been on national TV, when Sam, through her contacts, organized celebrity ghost hunt to film a live episode at the house, again creating more exposure. Events have been planned for 2018, including a historic car show, which was once part of the massive Hanworth Carnival, and held the Air Park. A seed bombing event took place to plant wildflowers along the entrance road. The GLA have told us that the greenbelt should not be an issue, and a land swap or sale should be agreed with Hounslow Council. On the 7th of July, Friends of Hanworth Park House held a classic car show, which combined with a house open day. The event has taken around 5 months to organize, and started out with a few cars on the lawn, but it became so big the cars had to be displayed on the tarmac outside the house by the steps. The grass was used for community stands and refreshments. Cars from all sorts of eras were on display, shining in the bright sunshine. It was very hot and an estimated 1,500 people visited during the day. The local community was represented by various stands: Feltham History, Friends of Bridge House Pond, Feltham Community Development Association, Hanworth Air Park Model Club. Talia Simone, a former contestant on BBC TV's The Voice, sang a couple of songs on the steps, and local enthusiast Garvin Snell provided the music for the day. Ex-workers from the care home years got together for a reunion with colleagues from years gone by. Descendants of 19th and 20th century owners of the house, the Perkins and Lafone families, were also on site and officially opened the house for the day. Historic England also visited the house recently and was shocked at the state it is in. After a question was put to Sadiq Khan, he said his deputy, Jules Pipe, would visit the house to see for himself the condition it is in. Council leader Steve Curran was also in attendance, with Friends members Richard Griffiths and Peter Hughes. We are currently waiting for a report back from the GLA on a decision. The final piece of the Hanworth Park House history jigsaw was put in place when members of the Whitehead family visited the house. A grandson and 3 great-grandchildren were given a private tour of the house and grounds, followed by a walk to the Cineworld complex to see the site of the old hangars.